What expectations does she have? What expectations do I have about this relationship?
Hi, friends. Welcome to My Divorce Real Estate. I'm Amber Gifford.
And I'm Scotty Gifford. And today we're going to be talking about more of the opening doors, new beginnings part.
Yeah, it's always somewhat goes back to real estate somewhere, but we have a lot to say. We have a lot of experience with things, so we like to share that experience so you can learn from our mistakes and get some good takeaways as well that have
Maybe some
worked.
of that wisdom.
Yeah, like what's worked for us might work for you. It may not. I don't know, but I do want to always share like, hey, this really worked well, and these are things that when I have friends or clients who are getting into relationships and remarrying for the second time, that we talk about some of the pitfalls together, and we just want to share. So we're here to share.
Yeah, so I think this plays well to if you are married and struggling, or if you are post-divorce and now looking to get into a new relationship. Both there'll be a lot of good takeaways maybe from this video.
Yeah, and if you're blended family, we all know the divorce rate's even higher second go round. I've come to the conclusion that it is because of children. No offense, kids, but it is. I feel like it's two separate families that have two separate
Approaches?
and disciplinary things, and we do things differently, most likely because we didn't have these children together, and their other parent made to do something different, and so they're trying to blend all of that together, and things that maybe I'll take accountability, are different than what you did and different than what your ex-wife did. And so I become the outsider when the kids are coming over or whatever. When you're blending those families together, that is what causes a lot of strife between people because it's different and difficult.
Yeah, and that's not just from us, but obviously we've had some of those struggles too, and we want to be open and honest with those conversations. But we've heard it from other friends and other clients of the same struggles of blending families together, and it does lead to a lot of
There's a lot of fights. I think the number one thing I hear is that they discipline different than me, and they are harder on my kids than their own kids, which we've had the same conversations.
And I think that's definitely a feeling people have, even if it's not true, but feelings are valid either way. And so it's like recognizing those feelings, but then also saying, well, what am I contributing to that, and how am I framing this, right? And how am I viewing this versus just saying, well, that's the way I feel, and I'm not going to change my mind, right?
Right. So first and foremost, my non-professional therapist opinion, because I'm not a therapist,
Not therapist.
yeah, is that before you jump into living with someone, if that's what you choose to do, or marrying someone where you're going to be blending, you guys need to have these tough conversations. The things that are really important to you about discipline and the things that you expect. Because if you don't know what someone's expecting, you can't help it. And if you're not going to communicate about it, because communication is key, then nobody knows what the heck's going on, and then your feelings get hurt. So Scotty and I were really good about like, hey, I said, family dinners are super important to me. I didn't have them growing up. I want everybody there. I want manners at the table. I don't eat in the living room. He did and does. He's an adult. He can choose to do that, but I don't want the kids grimy hands and stuff all over the living room. That's just a rule I've always had, and I wanted to keep doing that. I'm like, are you in agreement with that? And he was like, yeah, that's fine. I'm like, okay, well then you need to back me up because your kids aren't going to be used to that. And they're used to eating in the living room. And when we were dating, sitting at the coffee table, like, and occasionally we do that, but like, for the most part, we don't. And I said, we need to talk about these things. And like, manners are super important to me. I don't like people sitting at the table like this, like digging in their face. I hate that. Like, manners matter.
Yeah.
So those were like, I'm just off the top of my head thinking of, I remember us having these conversations.
So I think that really what she's, I'll restate it in a different way as a man over here on my side of this.
Yeah, they process differently.
Is that expectations going into it? What expectations does she have? What expectations do I have about this relationship? What am I expecting to happen at X, Y, and Z times, X, Y, and Z dates? How are things going to be handled when we do run into problems and we do run into kids doing what they want to do versus what we both want them to do, right? So I think that the managing of the disciplinary and managing of the rules and managing of the just overall expectations of the kids is really what we had to talk about a lot.
And you can't cover everything. Obviously, there's no possible way. But I do think things that irritate you now with your significant other's children and the way your boyfriend or girlfriend does it, they're going to irritate you worse when you're together in a household under the same roof. And even though you do get that break and it's nice to regroup, you have to have those difficult conversations about the kids and not let them feed in, because that little crack in your marriage becomes a bigger crack when you don't deal with it, and then that bigger crack and bigger and bigger, and you have this like huge gully now, and then you're back to square one. So you have to communicate about difficult stuff, and that was top priority for us. I said, I'm not living with you unless we go over these things. And so that's
for sure. And I think my big takeaway too from my first marriage was I had expectations that I wanted how things to work, and I wanted to put God first, right? I wanted God to be at the top of everything I do, and then I wanted us to be second, me and Amber, to be our marriage to be the second most important thing after God. And then then it was going to be okay, kids, work, all the other stuff down, right? Don't make false idols of the kids, the children of, they have to get everything they want or they won't love me later, like blah, blah, blah. Right. So
people do think that.
So I think that was really important for me, is that I wanted to, okay, we are going to have, a faith-based home.
Yes.
And we are going to go to church, and we are going to do the small group stuff, and the kids are going to go, and me and Amber are going to come out first before you kids, because we love you, but you guys are hopefully all going to leave. That's the plan, right? We're all going to leave. That's what we want. We want them to grow up, leave their mother and fathers and go and get married.
Well, right? And that expectation that you're talking about is also with the kids. Like, hey, when we're all under one roof, we are going to be if you're going to do something different, like we're all going to be going to church, you got to tell them in advance. I mean, we literally had tears from both sides when we switched church or we started church. And it was anxiety over something new that they had not experienced. I mean, it was ridiculous. But also at the same time, think about it. They've never done that before. Or my kids were in church, but we switched and they didn't like that we switched, and it's change and it's hard. And so most people don't enjoy change. I know I'm weird. I do, but, most people don't. And it is difficult, especially when you're adding other children involved and there's competition over, hey, that's my dad, or hey, that's my mom. You can't sit with her. Why'd you hug him or her? And praise God, we haven't had children strife very much. They fight. Don't get me wrong. They fight. But I think we're very clear with our expectations of them, between them. And Scotty and I communicate daily about things that come up, good, bad, and ugly. You have to.
Yeah, I think
we take walks and talk.
Yeah, I think I've been very blessed with Amber and I's relationship about the communication and how we're able to talk about these hard conversations. Because if you're not able to talk about it, it's just going to get buried, and there's going to be resentment, right? And so, that's something that we kind of swept under the rug in my past marriage, and things didn't get resolved or taken care of, and I think that led to more issues. Because and I've heard smarter people than I say this, like, if you don't talk about the issues and you just push away, you'd be sitting right next to them, but you could be miles and miles apart, right? So.
It doesn't always have to be a resolution, I feel like, either. Like, sometimes you just need to be heard, and you don't always have to agree. We don't always agree. And there's been fights when we've talked about things, arguments over stuff. And, one of the things I think we agreed upon too is, like, let's not, hold resentment. If we're feeling angry or hurt over something and you need to take a moment, that's okay. Hey, I need a moment. Because before, he told me straight up, like, I need to have a moment when I'm feeling heated. And I'm like, no, we're going to talk about it. I had to give him the respect to know, okay, I need to step away. But my agreement was, that's fine, but we have to come back to it.
Yeah.
So we can table it for a little while, but we need to come back to it. Because I do need to be heard, and so do you.
Yeah, and I think the big takeaway on that too, not a big takeaway from that, but a big, from my reading and understanding, is that when you are upset, your brain shuts down and shrinks. Your hippocampus shrinks, and you are unable to make wise decisions. You're dumber, basically, right?
Which is why we say any big decision, wait 24 hours, because you're emotionally charged, right?
Yeah, we do make decisions based on emotion first, and then back them up with logic. But I think, as we're emotional creatures, if you're upset about something, you shouldn't be making a decision based off of that. And I think sometimes people just lead all with emotion and never use any logic.
So, and it's important to cover all of these kind of deep rooted, and your pains from your past. Like a lot of times something that triggers you, they don't know it triggers you. Maybe you don't know it triggers you even, but it's important to talk about those vulnerabilities. And if you're with someone that you can't talk about things and be vulnerable with them without them going, well, you're stupid, or that's ridiculous, you shouldn't feel that way, that's probably not a good scenario to be in. You need to be allowed to be vulnerable, and that person shouldn't want to step on your mind tombs from the past. They should want to make them better. Yeah. And I know you're insecure about X, so let me reassure you that I love you and I never will leave you. And, you know, instead of using it to your advantage when you're angry, I'm going to leave, you suck at whatever. You know, I mean, it happens. Let's be real. You have to communicate, which is the end all be all, is communication. But I think for blended families in particular, talking about the things with the children prior to.
Yeah. Obviously, that's going to be a big one, to talking about the expectation of kids. Because that's, I think we've seen and we've heard that's most of the fights, right?
Yeah.
It's children, because you have different approaches to it, right? You've had
or
kids
no
before.
Approach.
Maybe both had kids, maybe only one had kids, but one of them has some expectation of managing it one way, and the other person's like, well, why don't you just do this, right? You probably, if you have kids, you probably have those parents like, well, when I have kids, they're going to do X, Y, and Z,
yeah.
right?
Or maybe your parenting style is authoritarian, and you're used to being like cracking the whip. I mean, everybody has a different parenting style, which is also brings me back to one of the things I feel is really important is if your child is over the age of like 13, it's probably not likely that the person coming into your life is going to be able to discipline them. Mm-hmm. They can support you side by side, but to go in after that child and be like, hey, you're going to do this, probably not going to happen. You can try, but they're going to end up seeing them as a threat rather than someone who's supporting you. Yeah. And I had that in my childhood growing up. My dad left whoever he was married to be the disciplinary all the time. When I was little, it's fine because you're little and you're reprimanding for, you know, coloring on the wall or doing whatever. But as you grow into a teenager, a new person comes into your life and you're 13, like, you're looking at them going, you can't tell me what to do. You're not my parent. Mm-hmm. So kind of like 12, 13 is the age.
You're not my dad.
Yeah. That's kind of the age that you go, okay, I'm going to support my girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse.
Yeah.
Rather than discipline the child.
And we've seen that play out. And we had these conversations prior to marriage, and then even, you know, obviously all the way through. But we've seen it play out where, you know, her youngest daughter was, there was an age that I could still be somewhat a disciplinarian. Mm-hmm. And there was also an older children that obviously I couldn't play those roles. And then what I do my best is to back her up on anything she is choosing to do. And if the kids are not listening or step out of line, I, you know, get their attention and say, hey,
your mom is trying to say.
Yeah,
you're very
kind of act as
that.
almost a mediator at that point, right? And trying to be the calm person and get them to listen, because I think most kids don't listen very well is the problem, right?
Or adults.
Sometimes it's adults too. It's most problem.
But that is very true. I mean, you don't want your kids to see them as a threat, and if they're always telling you what to do, a teenager is going to be like whatever, and that's where they kind of start to rebel, which we've experienced as well too. So and that was definitely in my childhood, because there wasn't the same person all the time. There's always different people coming in and out. But so blended family communication still is key. We truly believe in, you know, a faith-based family and God first. That's our take on it. And praying for your children, praying for your marriage.
I mean, reading those articles about, you know, what you're stepping into to get you some information. Information's good, but then obviously trying to apply that information that you actually received into your real life and incorporate it. Because I think that's sometimes like we always want to like, I love to read, and sometimes like, well, this is really great information, but then you're like, okay, well, I have to actually do the thing now, right?
Yeah, it's a lot harder to do it.
So hopefully we gave you some good information out of this video, and now you can, hey, now it's time to go apply some of that actual knowledge.
Hey, honey, we need a conversation. I don't like the way, no, you don't say I don't like, but definitely talk about those things that irritate you, because they're going to irritate you more, and you have to be able to articulate what it is in a manner where you're not pointing the finger. It's very important to talk through those things before you get under the same roof.
I'll add one other thing in there, and I think which is really good, is like making sure that you are actually listening to the other person. I know we've already said this, but like, have you been listening?
Can you repeat what we said? That's listening. Active listening
is different than listening. Active listening says, "Hey, okay, this is what she said, and I'm going to restate it again back in my words," and then she can either say, "Yes, that's right, and that's what you want to hear from Chris Voss. That's all right," or it's going to be like, "No, that wasn't at all. Like, were you even listening?" Right? And then you go, "Okay, well then
please repeat it.
Have her restate it again." And you go, "Okay, well, is this what you mean?" And then she goes, "No, oh, close." But then see, if you sometimes it might take a couple times to get, because we've had that conversation where we're like,
for sure.
I'm like, "Well, I'm hearing this," and then she's like, "No, I don't said that at all."
Because I think most people, and I know I do this. I've been working on active listening. Most people are waiting so they think they know what you're going to say, and so they're waiting to hear what you say so they have that response to come back. So they're constantly thinking about what they're going to be saying next because they think they know what you're going to say. So you're not really listening, and you miss the core piece of it. And if you can't repeat it back to the person you love, then you're not caring about what they say, and you're sending that message, I don't care about you.
Yeah, as a wise man said, you were given one mouth and 2 ears. So
I can't move my ears. It's gonna go. Anyway, so that's our 2 cents. We are divorce real estate lending advisors, but we are a blended family as well with 5 children. I'm a child of divorce 7 times over. We've experienced probably way more than we would have wanted to, but you know what? Knowledge is power, so you get to learn from our mistakes. And we hope you got a good takeaway from it.
Yeah, so thanks so much for watching. As always, we're here to bring you real life experience.
That's right. Bye. That's what our thing should be called, real life experience. I know you think that's funny, but I think it should be like legit what it is. Spell it out.